Welcome to the Grey Matter podcast. We set up this podcast to have deep conversations with people who are thriving on the outside. We're here to learn about the stuff in their grey matter. And we're here for the grey area stories. We're here to humanize the pursuit of success, performance, health span, and well-being. Let's try to unearth what we actually want and what actually matters to us. Ryan Unsworth is the clinical director of Calibrate Health and an osteopath in Singapore. He leads a team of physiotherapists and osteopaths integrating hands-on treatment and exercise science to help people move beyond pain and optimize long-term health and performance. As an osteopath and educator, he teaches anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, and manual techniques to medical professionals, bridging evidence-based care with a holistic approach to movement, recovery, and longevity. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Ryan.
Hello, sir.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
So you've been a clinician for a while now. In fact, I was a patient of yours. That's how we met. And, you know, you've had a business running for so many years now. You have a great team that you manage. And you help a lot of people. I know so many people that come see you to get out of pain. And
Sure.
by all accounts, from the outside looking in, seems like you have your shit together.
I try and keep it mostly together, you know. Quite a lot of the time it pops out now and then, but being able to put it back into sort of a box, and I do my best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way I'd like to start is, what is the stuff that we don't see in your day-to-day? Because I know the standards that you keep yourself to. See lots of patients, and you're a really involved leader in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And I know you try your best to be a good partner and all that stuff. What is the struggle? What is the undertone that maybe people don't get to see?
I think there's a constant tension in life between relaxation, contentment, mindfulness, being where you are in the present moment, and ambition, drive, potential. I think that with most humans, they have this daily tension within them of how far we lean one way or the other. And I often think that when we grow up, we have this blueprint for where we place our identity on the spectrum. Some people are very happy with doing very little, sitting around and lazing around. Other people feel they constantly had to have something that they're ticking off their to-do list to feel like they're okay. So I think that there will always be a tension to a point of feeling like, have I got enough done today? And I think it's a very common thing with high performers, right? People feeling like they need to do what needs to be done to make them feel like they can say, oh, I've done enough. I can rest. I deserve this. So I think that that's one thing that people wouldn't see from the outside. And it's something that I've got a bunch of tools now that I feel like I can tick off, know that in a time where I'm with friends and family, I'll be like, yeah, I've done what I had to do. Let me leave that, all of the unfinished things that I will need to do at some point, put it to the side and be able to be with friends and family.
Where do you think you fit on that spectrum of need to do a lot of stuff in order to feel good, or don't really need to do very much and just very happy to cruise and be? Where do you think you fit?
My identity, I would say, or my baseline is more relaxed, not doing that much, funnily enough. It's this feeling of, oh, I want to achieve something which bubbles up and then I follow it for a while. But I'd say that if I can have a holiday where I can just let go, it's quite easy for me to finally drop it.
So what caused the change, or what caused the shift to, I mean, by all accounts, from the outside looking in, most people would consider you a pretty high performer in that you do quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
How did it happen for me wanting to drive? I think it was growing up and having a pretty happy and easy childhood, and having a chip on my shoulder with being like, I don't know if I've proven myself.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I feel like I've been blessed that I had a wonderful family growing up, and not super wealthy, but we never had to worry about food on the table. I didn't have any major trauma in my childhood, which I know is something that a lot of people have hanging over them. So I was very lucky in that regard. And I just felt like, well, I got to put myself to the test. If you're going to play the human game, you want to play it on hard mode. I've always thought that. I've always thought, like, give me a challenge so I can rise to it, rather than just let me be an unmotivated blob.
Do you think that's important for human beings to have a challenge that we can rise to?
For sure. For sure. I think we meet the best version of ourselves when we have to rise to something which we feel exceeds who we are.
And do you think was that answer purely from how you know we're made up biologically, that we need that to feel better, or are you talking about something else?
I mean, resistance in general works for life. You know, if we look at longevity, for example, which is the hot topic, if you feed someone or something, your biological process, a cell, anything in the spectrum of life, a third less than it once, it usually lives a third longer. You know, if you create a strength stimulus by having to push past a resistance that someone can only just about handle, they get stronger. You know, if you put someone in a situation where they're very cold or very warm for a period of time, there are biological mechanisms that get put into place so that we become healthier.
Yeah,
So,
the hormetic stress thing is everywhere, right?
Mhm.
It helps us become the best versions of ourselves as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
That's an interesting
So
trend.
resistance is so important, and particularly in a day and an age where there isn't that many challenges in terms of food or shelter, we have to meet them on our own terms. And this is something I see at clinic, that often people who withdraw from the world, who feel like, oh, it's all a bit too much, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It really does become too much. Their ability to be able to tolerate stimuli around them, it means that we saw this during COVID, for example.
Yeah.
We had so many people going inwards and not leaving the house, and suddenly going out down to the shops or to meet a friend became something which was very stressful. So their ability to cope with something that before was just day-to-day normal, activities, that window of tolerance ended up shrinking to a point that doing something small became overwhelming. And in many ways, if we don't meet resistance head on, we will find we live a much more challenging life.
And do you feel like you've taken on the right amount of resistance?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you go about calculating that? Is it a let's go by feel day-to-day thing, or is it better to constantly keep yourself under a certain amount of pressure so you can cook in the pressure and become a better version? Or how do you approach that?
Well, if we look at it from a neuroscience perspective, we know that if you're constantly in that state of fight or flight, you're not going to be able to adapt and recover. Resistance isn't the only variable we need in play to improve. You need to have something which is challenging and then a period of time to be able to adapt afterwards. So just, drive is actually a terrible, blueprint for health. And in fact, some of the most unhealthy people that I treat are often incredibly successful because they haven't quite worked out that balance. And they'll find that they'll drive. And we've all heard these stories of people who have heart attacks at 50 or, end up having a mental breakdown at some point in their life. And it wasn't that they were not successful, that they weren't able to go out and achieve the necessary things that society had put up in front of them, but they never had the time to back off again and to adapt. There's that point of regulation that we need. So in neuroscience, we see that a lot. But in terms of finding it in a personal scale, you have to listen. You have to have awareness. You have to have this thing called interoception, your ability to sense your own internal state. So to listen to how you're feeling that day and make a decision of, do I need to push? Do I feel like I'm at a 7 out of 10 and I actually can really drive and meet the resistance head on? Or actually, do I need to have that regulation phase, that time out, so I can adapt from what happened yesterday?
And do you feel like that's enough structure for most people? Like when you talk about this stuff with your patients, I'm sure you see a lot of patients who, one of the key issues is they're just not slowing down. Do you think it's enough, or in your experience, has it been enough to just offer them that idea of interoception and a scale of 1 to 10, and based off of that, we choose something else to regulate if that's what you need? Or do you feel like the conversation has to go deeper than that?
It has to go deeper than that. Yeah, it has to go deeper than that. For a few people, you may find that is enough, the conceptual idea. But for most, to be able to truly listen is something which is atrophied in our modern day. We use our wearables. We look outward for external validation. It's very rare and almost sometimes the most difficult thing to listen inwards.
Yeah, it's a strange thing that's happened in our world.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking everywhere else outside of us to get information on how well we're doing inside, instead of just talking to ourselves.
Yeah. And this is something I've seen from a clinical perspective for a long time, and far before I knew the academic side. I was practicing for a good 4 years before I had this conundrum that was presented to me. I've seen all these MRI scans, and I'd seen one person with, let's say, severe degenerative osteoarthritis of the knee, no pain at all. And then another person with the exact same scan, but they're debilitated by the pain. And as a clinician, and particularly as a student, we were always thinking that, structure would govern function. And in the real world, you realize there's another variable which is far more complex, which is how does that person integrate the sensations of their body into the way that they perceive the world? So I will go into what I mean by that. There is another variable which trumps structure, that you can have one person who, as I said, had one condition the same with the other. What's making the difference in that situation, and how can we harness that?
Is it our perception of the pain?
It is our perception of the pain. Yeah, it's our ability, but perception sometimes is misconstrued as a word. Okay. Perception doesn't just mean, oh, I'm going to think differently about it. I'm going to think about something else. I'm going to distract myself. Perception is, from my perspective, from a biological perspective, is you have stimuli that come into the brain. Then from up top, we have processing of this stimuli. Okay. And that processing is a key part. That would be what I would define as perception. For someone who's been in chronic pain for 6 years, they can't think their way out of that. The neuroplasticity which has occurred in their brain means that there has to be certain steps to get through that type of chronic pain in comparison to someone who has just felt pain for 2 or 3 days.
So how might that play out? The pain thing, if they have been exposed to this chronic pain, and you're saying that you can't just think your way to a different feeling, then how does the change happen to help someone like that?
Sure. So to be able to help someone with chronic pain, you have to first get them to change their self-limiting beliefs from a neuroscience perspective.
I did not think you'd go there. Yeah, tell me. So, it was super interesting.
Say, for example, someone feels that I've got this terrible knee, and they think that every time I feel any sensation from that knee, you're wanting to back off immediately. You're feeling like, oh, no, it's really bad. Every time you're feeling a sensation, it is corroborating your perception of bad knee. If you can get them to start seeing that part of their body as something which maybe has more capacity, more resilience than it had before, and over a period of weeks to months to years, get them to believe that the sensations there are no longer dangerous, then you'll find that their pain comes down massively. In fact, a lot of the time, the first and second session, I'm not making that much change to structure. I'm changing patient's perception. There's 3 things that I will often say with patients that will completely change how they're feeling regarding their situation, their pain, their problem, their issue. And the first one is coherence. Can they comprehend what's going on? Okay, it's a ligament issue. It's, from this, it's actually the way that you're moving, it's from the foot, it's from the hip, etc. They need to be able to comprehend the problem. The second is manageability. Can they manage the pain? Can you give them something which helps them to decrease the pain, or even to be able to get it to go away completely for a period of time? And then the final one is meaning. If we're able to give them some meaning back into their lives, like if they were an avid climber and then they had to go away from climbing for such a long period of time, a large part of what they derived meaning from in their personality is taken away. So you need to be able to either get them back to doing the things that they love doing, or get them to derive meaning from another activity. So even with those things, before we even address structure, you end up changing people's perception of pain. I was originally, going to go down the line of, I'd been around this idea of how perception changes, reality in a way, their reality. And I realized that there was this big hole in how I'm treating people. If I'm only thinking about the structure, if I'm only thinking about trying to change the OA knee from this person to this person, and I'm not thinking about the most important variable, then how can I think that I'm a holistic practitioner in a way? So it sent me down this rabbit hole of trying to understand psychology and trying to understand how, some people have this ability to feel healthy and others feel that they are problematic and diseased. And I came across this term called Salutogenesis, which was fascinating for me at the time. And it was a guy called Aaron Antonovsky who came up with this term. And the whole idea is that the health is a continuum. And we have spent millions, billions in terms of understanding one side of the continuum. As a race, we know the microphysiology of how pathology comes about. There's many diseases that we now understand in such intricacy that we can beautifully create drugs, try to make people feel better and to change their lives. And this isn't a bad thing. But in regards to the other side of the continuum, what is the opposite of disease? Is it
the opposite is, it should be health, it should be vibrance.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just okay right now, is how people define it.
Yeah, it's the absence of pain. It's the absence of, disease, etc. And I just think that falls so short of where we should be.
So short.
Where we should be going.
Yeah, it does not feel like thriving.
No. And it's difficult for people to map out the other side. And this guy, Aaron Antonovsky, mapped it out. Actually tried to lean more into, okay, what is the opposite of this health continuum? And how do we go toward health rather than just trying to always push disease away? Because there's no point in which we are able to fully rid ourselves from life stresses. You can't back off from everything that's about to happen to you. You might be hit by a car. I hate to say it. You might have a horrible disease happen. You don't know what life's going to bring to you next.
So then it's about the relationship that we can have with the uncertainty and the stress?
Yes, it's how to manage it. And it comes back to, he had a really nice analogy of a river analogy. So if someone's drowning in a river, most people and most of the modern medical practices will think about how do we save that person drown. Preventative medicine is the idea if you think, okay, who's pushing them into the river? Aaron Antonovsky said the issue with these analogies is that there's no out of the river. There's no safe bank at which we can all look on and be like, oh yeah, that guy's drowning. No, everyone's in the river. So the issue is that there is no safe bank on which we can look at people drowning from. We're all in the river. And the key thing is, how dangerous is our river? And do we know how to swim? And this moving toward health should be, and if we follow this analogy, swimming lessons. How do we create resilience? How do we, meet the challenges that life throws at us, which are inevitable?
And so this basically, to sort of paraphrase how your first couple of sessions can go with a patient who is experiencing chronic pain, you're talking about education so they understand what they're dealing with, so they have the language to describe it and to visualize the injury. And then you're talking about building capacities, and then you're talking about helping them find meaning, whether that's going back to the thing they love to do or find an alternative strategy to feel like you're on some sort of a mission. Is this taught in school, or is this something that you had to come to later as, hey, there's something else? Yes, there's the symptoms, but it seems like at some point you realize that there's this other stuff. There's a master program that comes before that trumps that stuff.
Yeah. No, I just teach swimming lessons. No, you're right. So with university, you never got taught any of that.
Interesting.
Yes, it was really about structure. It was about understanding biomechanics. It's a lot to learn. It's physiology, it's anatomy. There's a lot to go over. So I don't blame them for that. I had a great course. But that is the nuance that you have to learn afterwards. And then you realize that it is such a massive part of getting people better. You know, there is no distinct separation between body and mind. Those two things, the same thing. And it's just a human classification that we break them apart.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really important concept that most people don't realize. And something happened across COVID, as far as I can see, where people were forced to stay in, and they were forced to, you know, deal with their emotions, deal with their relationships. You can't run away into work as much.
No.
Where we realized that our physical health and mental health are really, really deeply connected. And I think, I mean, it caused a lot of relationship issues with people. It also helped people see that maybe the coping strategies that they've employed in the past, like over-exercising, or, you know, relying on caffeine, relying on alcohol or whatever to get through stuff, there's a limit to it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see a lot of this in clinic as well. Can you speak on that a little bit, this mind and body sort of interplay, and also you talk about how they can't be separated?
Sure. Yeah, so the mind and body interplay is something that people will come to me with a problem and they think it's always a body problem. You know, they'll be like, my shoulder. And you're like, okay, your shoulder, tell me more. And you sort of end up just pulling this, you know, little string first that looks like a shoulder, and then someone else comes out, and then their bike comes out, and then, you know, something else, half a sofa comes out, and it feels like you're just like, oh, okay, and that. And you realize it's often only the tip of the iceberg talking about the shoulder. You find that ability to get good sleep is such a key thing to ask, because it tells so much. It says, are they able to get into parasympathetics? Are they able to get into rest and digest? And we have this balance, the autonomic nervous system, between fight and flight, which we all know about, and rest and digest. And you can't have both of them working fully all the time. You know, just with most of these things in the circadian rhythm, night and day, we have this on and off of the body, and we have to move between both of them. And if we thinking we can only have one side of the coin and not the other, it's not going to work. So if you're thinking about stimulants and caffeine and working late and always being on, never taking a rest, you're going to have a whole bunch of issues pop up.
You can't recover.
No, of course. Whether that be pain sensitivity, whether that be, you know, simply biological supraspinatus tear that doesn't heal, you know, whether that be you just feel burnt out. There are many factors to understand when trying to get someone's body to heal. You know, as practitioners, as osteopaths in particular, we're more like ecologists, you know, understanding systems and how they play with each other.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So as I said before, mind and body, you can't separate them. You always need to look at it from its total perspective. And if you're always on, always driving, and you think that you're going to last for a long period of time in terms of performance, in terms of mental health and physical health, you've got another thing coming.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about my second shoulder surgery, where you were helping me with the rehab. And,
Sure.
you know, now that I've had quite a lot of distance from it, I mean, there's definitely this thing of, on the days where I was less stressed and I was better rested, my subjective experience of how my shoulder was much better.
Yeah.
And I can even remember some sessions with you that, well, I went into it with a lot of emotion, because you have certain part of my identity at the time was very much tied to how capable I was physically. I was dealing with all that stuff. And I remember coming in with really high emotion like that. And when I assessed that situation, I was very stressed out and tired about other things, right? And like you said, I wasn't, maybe at the time I was considering the healing. I probably would have understood that, hey, if you don't rest, you're not giving your body a chance to heal that thing. But at that time, several years ago, I don't know if I would have had the thought that if I don't rest, then the deeper stuff doesn't get to heal as well.
Yeah, truly. And you're not the only one, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many folks come in and I've just got this thing, just sort that out. You know, or like, don't get me to change anything else. Just make this go away if I pay you. And it's a fun dance, because you have to give them a bit of what they want and get them to understand that, and then slowly guide them through the other items. And once you get, show that you have competence and confidence in one area, they're more likely to trust you.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, well, maybe I can, sleep 30 minutes earlier. Maybe, he's done well so far. Maybe he does know what he's talking about. And you just slowly sugar the pill and you get people to change that way.
What do you think that in big cities where we're all driving really hard, that drive thing you talked about at the start of the podcast, that's kind of the blueprint for life in Singapore. It's kind of how we go.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on there? And we're not just talking about Singapore, we're talking about the culture in every sort of hard-charging city where people are trying to do stuff. And what's the pattern there that is preventing us from feeling better, being less in pain?
What's the pattern there? I'd say that when you're in a big city and we're social animals, we feel like we want to be at the top of the hierarchy. We want to feel like with the people around us that I'm doing well. And we only have a few criteria that are given to us with doing well. And I think particularly in busy cities like this one, doing well often looks like doing more, earning more, achieving more.
Yeah, money and title.
Yeah. So if that's the criteria for success, and you also have a lot of people close to each other comparing themselves to each other, then this is what happens.
Super dangerous.
Yeah.
Super dangerous. And I think, at least from my own experience and from clients that I've worked with, I find it really frustrating that we don't flesh out the other areas that are important to us until something really bad happens.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier today, like whether it's a heart attack or some sort of injury, or with me, it was stress and anxiety and hospitalization. It's frustrating to me because we're in a society that obviously values intelligence, we value education, we value, in some ways, self-awareness and stuff like that as well. Yet until life comes along and hits you across the head with a sledgehammer, we don't listen. What do you think is going on there?
What do I think is going on there? I mean, that's a tough question, and I like it. I'm willing to rise to it. I think that the issue is that we get caught up with not what is important, but what is urgent. And I think that if there is constant things to do, stimulus around you, expectations of you, the time that you have to listen inwards becomes so small. And distraction becomes a sense of relief, because when you've ignored enough of the signals and then you go to look inwards and you realize you're not happy, you're not where you want to be, you've crushed down that, inner child, shall we put it, for a decade plus, and not given yourself the time. Sometimes it's not a very nice truth to look at anymore.
Maybe too hard to reconcile.
Maybe.
Easier to distract and go deeper into the thing where you can win.
Indeed.
Yeah, at least my experience of it was, I mean, you saw this. My experience of it was you keep digging a deeper and deeper hole.
Yeah.
And it gets harder and harder to climb out of.
Yeah.
And in some ways, the impetus for me starting this podcast as an adjacent thing to this sort of new phase is to have these types of gray area conversations. It's what are the things that we're all sort of struggling with, where maybe if we talk about them, we can learn from someone else's experience of it, so we don't have to deal with the sledgehammer to the head moment of life forcing you to realize it. Do you struggle with that, the importance thing and the urgency thing?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, when you're running a company and you have patients who you really care about coming in every day giving you the worst thing that's going on in their life right now, your ability to look at something like, call a parent or do something creative or go and have a run, whatever it is, which I would say are all important things to do for yourself or for your family, then they get drowned out. So when urgent is always, like there's always some form of alarm bell going off, your ability to refocus and have enough mental bandwidth and CPU to say, no, I want to do what's important, is sometimes a challenge. And still something which I feel I'm not doing too badly at, but I can go for weeks, sometimes months on end when I realize, oh, I haven't done that, even though I know it sits with my values and is something which is really important to me. I haven't done it because I've been just trying to put out fires everywhere.
What are some of the things that fall off?
The first thing to fall off, unfortunately, is hanging out with friends and calling family. They're unfortunately the first ones to fall off. So
You're smiling as you say that, but there's some sadness there for sure.
yeah, well, no, there is sadness. I'm smiling more because it's usually you that I'm not calling and calling you to see if you want to go out. So I was thinking like, oh, at least we're hanging out now. But no, obviously there's sadness there. And the fact that you have people in your life you know you really care about. And if the sledgehammer moment were to happen, where they're gravely ill or something were to happen, you'd drop all of the urgent things in a moment. But it's the presence, the quiet presence there day to day, which actually goes ahead and means so much to friends and family, that ends up being thrown aside when you're a busy person. So the other thing which you probably find I'm finding it difficult to integrate is being flexible and being structured as well. That old dance of a schedule which you're like, oh no, I can drop this, I'll put this in, and being structured enough to say, no, this is how it is. I'm setting this amount of time for exercise, I'm setting this amount of time for friends, etc. And yeah, that balance I think I haven't quite struck perfectly yet.
And it's conceptually, because I do the same thing, but I find it conceptually crazy that we've built our lives to a point where to do some self-care, but to, get some connection in, we need to schedule it like a meeting. And I even talk about it like that when I coach people, that if you really care about your health, if one of your values is taking care of yourself because you respect yourself and you want to put yourself first because it enables you to be the best version of yourself, you cannot have a situation where, your boss will tell you to schedule 20 meetings this week and you'll do it no problem, but you won't schedule your workout, for example.
Yeah.
But that's a crazy system that we've developed. Like, what am I talking about? You have to schedule time with friends, time exercising.
Yeah.
And in some ways, this is the pattern that we have in societies like this. We have to figure out how we work within it, right? But I think there's serious risk of making too many small decisions over what eventually becomes years and years and years, where we end up painting ourselves into a corner of regret, right? How many stories do we know about where people have gone down that path and achieved some insane layer of success and are miserable?
Yeah, I know so many of them. I have so many patients like that, people who are, of course, it would never be a point that I would name names, but it's unfortunately something which you see quite often, that you have everything that you should want in the world, but something isn't quite right. They're not quite happy.
Yeah. And in some ways, thankful.
Still making your mind up.
A couple of years ago when something quite intense and tragic happened in my life, and I was forced to face the fact that I had built my entire sense of identity around what I was doing at work. And as much as I still don't really like to admit it, so much of the meaning that I drew from life was related to the success in that thing that I was building, right? And I think in sort of new phase of life since then, I've been trying to figure out how to build in the other stuff, because when everything collapsed, I was forced to realize that, well, who am I? And actually, there's all this stuff around me that is super important, and all these people that really bring me a deep sense of joy that I haven't been investing in enough. And it was really uncomfortable. It was really difficult to face. But in some ways, it's good that at the same time, illness struck with people close to me, and there's some deaths in the family, and kids came along. So I had all this stuff that was that sort of like shook me and helped me realize that no, like yes, work stuff and sense of purpose and mission and challenge and all that, but also all of this.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful thing to see. You know, I was there with you when a lot of this happened, but to see you go through that, and yes, you know, there's a grieving process. Yes, there's this process of difficulty, but you know, to see you connect with your family in such a beautiful way, and to have friends around you who became even closer after that as well. Like it's, it seems that you can dwell on either one, right? You can either look at just the negative side and beat yourself up about it, or you can look at just the positive side and actually feel that it happened for a reason, you know, and you're in a better place afterwards. It's a challenge of perspective quite often when difficult things happen to us, and how we integrate it into who our new identity is either a success or a failure. The act itself wasn't a success or a failure. Your ability to integrate it in a meaningful way makes all the difference.
Is it clear to you what success is for you?
I think so. I think this, you know, I don't say this in terms of wanting to sound big-headed, but I think success is where we are right now. Like, look at the sort of privileges we have. If you can draw your own goalpost for success, and as long as you draw it somewhere which is halfway or maybe 2/3 of what you already have, and then a quarter of what you're still driving for, I think that's a very healthy way to place your criteria for success. You know, I've got people around me who I care for deeply. I got food on the table. I've got shelter. You know, I've got a means and meaning in my life, and a means to make, you know, a amount of money which can get me and my family by. What more could you want? You know, people would die for that in other countries. So I think that being able to have this attention of what's important to you, and to place a significant amount of it, of your attention, on realizing how lucky you are, is a recipe for success.
I think that's so important. I don't want that to, like, that's a lesson that I think all of us should take away from this, right? I think what you just said there is really simple, but it's not that easy to do day to day. There's like a certain amount of training yourself to keep that filter that needs to happen. Yeah, I find a lot with the clients that I coach, like everybody knows that, everybody knows about being grateful, but in the day-to-day chaos of just dealing with the urgent stuff, it's not easy to keep that filter.
You can lose it, right? Very quickly. The attention part, I think, is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, actually. Before, we always thought about the most important currency is time, you know, time to live, time to be with friends and family, etc. But I think now in the modern day, with the amount of things that pull our attention away, the most important currency is attention. Even you can be on holiday or with your friends and family and sat down there and thinking about, I should have written that email, or still having an argument, you know, with an ex-colleague of yours in your head, you know? So if you can make sure that when you're there, you're really there. And if you can train the ability to not just get stuck on scrolling nonstop, but be able to hone your attention to whatever it is, to whether it being grateful, being around friends and family, being content, focusing on a mission and a drive to your next, you know, whatever the thing it is you want to achieve. I think attention is something which it has to be an active battle in this day and age, because if you just leave it to allowing your phone to train you, it's going to go the opposite way real quick.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to frame it, because essentially, from what I hear, what you're describing is be fully present where you are. And I think framing it as attention is potentially really helpful to some people that think about, be present and be mindful. Think of that as like a little bit too woo-woo, because you're right. Like we all know this feeling of like, I'm with my kids and I'm trying to answer a thing, and then I have to call myself out. Like, what are you doing? Like, you only have this one and then you have to make these decisions to put that away. So I think it's quickly becoming one of the most important skills that I think we should teach kids from the get-go.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think it goes a step further than just being present in the moment. But attention, the reason why I chose that word attention is because we have amazing brains for planning, for thinking ahead, for being able to come up with wonderful ideas and then be able to stew on them for a while. And sometimes absolutely, when your kids around, you want to be fully in the moment with them, but sometimes you want to be in the future. Sometimes you want to dwell in lovely memories of the past, and you can sit there on a Sunday afternoon and just think, oh, that was amazing, So I think that, yes, like the idea of mindfulness and be here now is so important because often we've lost that. It's often the one that we need to fight for. But I think attention as the most important currency also includes your ability to focus on one task, even if it's the one that you're driving for in future. Because if you're pulled away by, the smallest distraction, which we can easily be, then being a successful individual and achieving what you want to achieve is also really bloody difficult.
Yeah. I definitely take what you're saying, that it's not just about the present moment, it's about being able to pay attention and focus on whatever the task at hand is. And sometimes it is being present.
Yes.
But if the situation calls for some deep reflection and some journaling, or like a deep conversation with a friend, whatever it is, just be all the way there as well, not thinking about what else I should be doing. I think that's such an important thing that we've stumbled into that I think is a big issue in this day and age as well. I remember growing up and taking the bus to school before I got my first iPod. Was that what they were called? iPods? So there was no music and you're just sitting on the bus. I think about this like quite often. When you're just sitting on the bus, you're just thinking. And you don't think about your thinking, you're just like letting your mind think.
Sure.
And we don't get very much of that anymore because why think when I can distract myself on my phone? Why think when I can watch something on TV? Put enough attention on that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it brings a nice memory back. I remember when I didn't have any distractions on the bus to school each day. I remember putting my head on the glass and just going, feel the vibrations.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you do to amuse yourself, providing the space and the time to do it. I think we get the bus home.
There's a topic that I've wanted to talk to you about for a while. It has to do with pain.
Sure.
And I've never thought about, until we had a brief conversation about it, how challenging it might be or it can be to be dealing with pain and people in pain all day long. And for me, this texture is really interesting because I know you love what you do. And obviously the impact that you have on people's lives is super clear. You can draw a straight line from the work that you do to the positive impact that it has.
Sure.
Which is great. But what have you realized over the years, now that you've done it for a decade plus, of the toll that it takes on you?
Sure. I mean, it does. There's no doubt about it. As I mentioned before, pretty much every hour on the hour, people come in with this thing which is the worst thing in their life, or maybe not the worst thing. Sometimes there's a little, niggle here and there, but there's this negativity which is surrounding the start of every session in a way. But for me, the ability to go to the most difficult part and try and fix it has always been an area which I felt is the most meaningful work. And I remember when we went to train with Dan Brule, he gave a wonderful analogy of feeling like he just wants to jump in the hole with people and then show them there's a way of getting out. And that resonated with me so much because I'm like, that's the same thing. Like, I know I've been dealing with pain, for however many years now, and seen people go through it, been through injuries myself, etc. And I know that for them, they feel lost. They feel in this moment of pure desperation, and they're stuck in this hole. And to be able to jump in there and be like, don't worry, I got this. Like, I've been here before. We can get out. Here's a way out. You can climb up this way, etc. So that was always really meaningful to me. And like you say, the ability to see them get better means that you get this kick out of it. You get this rush where you see that you're doing good in the world, but you get tired. Just listening to the stories, being there with them, being emotive, caring. Some practitioners stop caring, which I think is a terrible shame. They sort of let it wash over them, and it's a way of trying to deal with it. And other people don't stay in the industry that long or feel like they can only do maybe 1 or 2 patients a day. So for me, when someone's laying it all out, first thing is you got to be there with them, and you got to make sure you're not trying to push past what they're saying too quickly. You know, even if the answer to me seems obvious and clear from the first 15 minutes, you got to be there with them. And when you're there, often I'll find like changing how I'm breathing is a wonderful way to do it. Get yourself into a state of calm so that you can absorb but not feel like it's changing you. If you let yourself just be taken away with it, you'll start feeling your heart rate rise, you'll start getting a little bit sweaty, a little bit anxious. You think, oh my gosh, I got to help this person, how am I going to do it? So the ability to slow your breathing down, to be able to stay calm in the moment, to be able to observe this other human going through something difficult, and then at the end, you have to leave it. You have to be like, I've done what I can and that's enough. And then you shake it off and you go to the next one.
Yeah, I think that can be super helpful, because I think most people that are out there slogging it away at work or in life, maybe they don't feel it to the extreme that you feel because you're dealing with people in pain, and, you know, you're generally not so happy when you have an injury, so you have to sort of deal with that. I remember this from when I was working in counseling. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some lessons to be gleaned from this here. Of, you mentioned breath work, and basically you mentioned boundaries as well, right? And it seems like what you're alluding to here is you at some point realized that the work that you do, as much as you love it, will take a toll. And in some way you've had to amass a bit of a toolkit to, let's just call it, take care of yourself. I'm not sure how you frame it in your mind. But where are you on that now? What do you do so when you go home, you can show up as the person you want to be, or to the next patient, you can show up the way that you want to be, or for yourself, you can show up the way you want to be.
Yeah, so in real time during, like I said, I do breathing modifications. Breathing is one of the quickest ways that you can end up influencing the autonomic nervous system. So slowing down the breath, slowing down the exhale, matching the inhale with the exhale, really simple ways you can do it while you're talking to someone, while you're listening to them, to actually make sure it's not getting you riled up. Hard physical exercise is amazing for it. You know, being able to do resistance training or running or Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Does that shake off the tension, or is it deeper than that?
Shakes off the tension. Is it deeper than that? It's also doing something you love. You know, it's having time alone by yourself, listening to it, whether it's running or strength training, maybe listening to great music. So it's another thing which I'm passionate about, or being in a great community and doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like all of those things, it's technical, it's interesting, it's cerebral, and you get a hard workout as well. So, yeah.
Anything else that you do, specifically with nutrition, with sleep?
Yeah. Ice bath and sauna, which is fairly ubiquitous in terms of, you know, what we're talking about now. And I can talk about particular protocols if you like, but also nutrition-wise, I know it's, people say take it for granted, but nutrition is really important, but hydration is absurdly important. If you are just mildly dehydrated, the cognitive effect that it has is massive. This has been studied. So,
and it's not just water.
No, it isn't just water, but for the most people with a modern diet, it's mostly water.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, like, electrolytes are super important, particularly in a country like Singapore where we're sweating a lot. People who are also doing saunas or hard physical exercise outside, you're right. You should be thinking about electrolyte balance.
But first, drink enough
water. It's like too quickly people want to reach for the supplements when you're like, okay, well, are you well hydrated enough? Anyway, that's another one. Sleep, for me, I'm really strict with no overhead lights as soon as the sun goes down. In terms of being able to set this circadian rhythm and get a good balance in terms of natural melatonin production, you shouldn't be having bright overhead lights at 8 p.m. because your body's thinking the sun's still in the sky. So like floor lamps, low lighting, etc., as soon as I come back is super important.
Yeah, that's a really good list.
There's probably some others, but I think that's a good start.
Some stuff that helps protect your sleep so you can show up in the right way the next day. Yeah. Some stuff to adjust your physiology in real time with hard exercise, jiu-jitsu, adjust your psychology because you get to do something cerebral, something you enjoy. Can we talk about the hot and cold a little bit and how you approach that?
Sure. So for me, I like to use the cold, particularly for the endorphins, the energy production side, which for me has been fantastic. So I typically try and do it early in the morning, around 3 degrees, 2 minutes is what mine is. Because I want to be quick, I want to get in and out, and then I want to go on with the next part of my day. But I've gone to that phase over a long period of time of doing it. I started out doing 12 or 14, dropped it to 10, dropped to 7, dropped to 6, dropped to 5, and then we ended up getting to 3. For my heat side, and also I like playing around, I do love the Wim Hof style breathing as well, just in terms of getting energy moving and getting that sympathetic state. So I do use that in the morning. And then for sauna, I do some of my best thinking after doing a sauna, and I don't know what it is. I haven't worked this out yet. I've spoken to other people. Some people say they get it. Some people say they don't. But for me, watching my heart rate double and trying to stay there for at least 3 or 4 minutes, I'm talking about resting heart rate doubling, in a sauna. So usually it takes me about 18 to 20 minutes, depending on the sauna. Yeah. I've been doing it for a long time, so I'm quite heat adapted on that front. But when you get that, you're going to get the heat shock proteins and the benefits of heat shock proteins. And afterwards, I feel I do some of my best thinking.
Do you do that evening? Do you do that morning?
Evening, usually. Unless it's an admin day and I can sneak in one in the middle of the day.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that. And so in the morning, you just do one plunge, yeah?
Yes.
Multiple plunges.
Yeah, depending on if I've just trained as well. Sometimes I'll do my resistance training in the morning. If I'm doing legs that day, then I won't do it, just to try and not blunt the hypertrophy response.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
No worries.
Just to shift gears a little bit before we wrap up, we are running out of time. You are becoming a father soon.
I have. Real soon.
How are you feeling about that?
I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Do you feel like it's going to or already has shifted your idea of success, where you want to apply your attention? What are the shifts that you feel within yourself as you prepare and open yourself up to this next bit?
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading boring parenting books for about 3 months now. No, there've been some good ones actually, but just the shift in perspective is massive, because you stop thinking about yourself so much, and you think about, what is the information that I want to give on? What is the blueprint to life that I want to see if I can try to hand down to this next human? You know, how do I want to show up for them? What do I need to put into place to make sure I have the ability to show up like that? And to be able to care for my partner who's going through this transformational experience and needs someone to make it as, doable as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new form of tension to have to deal with, isn't it? Yeah. Like, it's in a really great way, as you try and find a new balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything you want to share there in terms of how you might want to live a little bit differently in this new phase?
I think what I mentioned about attention bubbled up from, a big part of that bubbled up from what we're talking about now. To be able to make sure have my mind in a state where it can bring its attention to what's happening. Because so many people go through this stressful experience of poor sleep, of grieving for a loss of part of themselves or their personality, of, I get to do this, or I'm the sort of person who goes out or has a drink, etc., etc. The fact that the relationship changes massively. So all of those factors mean that quite often you're placed in this state of cognitive turmoil. And if you can stay present and bring your attention to what matters during that period of time, I think it's the difference. I hope it's the difference, if I can manage it, between enjoying this incredible experience of, bringing another life into the world, or feeling completely steamrolled by it. So I'm hoping that with all of those factors in play, I can still enjoy where I am in that period of time.
I think it's a really good frame. I think it feels almost like a secret to how we should be operating it. Someone who I consider a mentor once phrased it to me like, be 100% on or 100% off in everything that you do. And when it comes to kids or work or partner or whatever it is, I think that's what you're alluding to with the attention thing. And maybe instead of thinking so much of how this is all going to play out and what else we're going to do, it is about this moment right here. In closing, there is something that I've been trying to do with these podcasts.
Okay.
In the spirit of becoming, let's call it. Is there something that you've been thinking about or struggling with that maybe to do with health span or success or a sense of meaning or anything of that nature that you haven't quite cracked yet, that you've been trying to figure out? Because I don't think we'll get to an answer today, but as a thing to do across the lifespan of this podcast, to have a collection of these that we try and answer over time, it would be quite cool.
Oh, is there something which I'm trying to crack? Is that something specific in regards to, I'm trying to achieve a certain thing, or is it more conceptual, a problem that I'm trying to, untie?
You can take it either way. And what I'm trying to get to is the tensions that we feel as someone from the outside looking in, a high performer who in so many ways has his shit together, yet there's stuff that we're trying to piece together still. That there's an awareness and acknowledgement of, I probably need to figure that out over the next few years. And it could be something as straightforward as, not for you, but if someone has high cholesterol and they can't figure out how to implement the habits that they know then they should do because the pattern of life doesn't accommodate for that. Or it could be something beyond that.
I'll take it as the conceptual one, but I'm not sure if it's going to be as easy to answer or to crack this one. For the longest time I've thought about life being in seasons of, you can't think that in winter you wish it was hot and summer you wished it was cool, that you have to take the season that you're in and then enjoy what's there. For the longest time I've been in the season of working really, really hard. And I think the problem which I'd be trying to crack is, at what point am I closing this season, and at what point am I ready for the next one, and what that season looks like. I think that's the uncertainty of the future. I think that's the uncertainty of what's coming next. But this other side to that, if I'm trying to work out a way to crack it, or if I'm trying to understand it, is I think that's part of the beauty of life, isn't it? That you never know. And would you really have it any other way? But I'd be lying if I would say that wasn't a point of tension of mine to work out what this next season is going to be, where I will be, and what's going to be my day-to-day living.
And it is interesting to look at it like seasons. I tend to do that as well. I think as I evolve, I'm playing around with the idea of ratios for the season versus what seasons seem to imply, which is now we're doing this and then now we're doing this. But in reality, it's not a binary thing, is it?
Sure.
And across this conversation, I think we pretty well established the need for a challenge and a need to have some difficult stuff that you deal with each day in order to feel content and feel happy and feel like you're contributing to the world. And I think if the next season meant that you can't see patients and you can't lead your team and you can't have this positive impact on all the people that you help, you might end up miserable, even though you would have all the time with your family and all that. Yeah. So I feel like when you appreciate the nuance of it, it's not turning it all the way down to nothing. It's recalibrating the ratios, maybe.
I like it.
I don't know.
I think you cracked it, sir.
Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.